Welcome, I'm your host, Guadalupe Cáceres, and this is Beyond the Blacktop.
I always knew if something happened, it would be him.
There was something really off about him.
I never told anyone.
Letting someone know now can save lives later. This message is brought to you by the Texas Department of Public Safety.
In today's episode, we'll be focusing on the vital aspects of public safety. See something, do something is very important as we highlight what public awareness is. We'll also be talking about the iWatchTexas app, a powerful tool developed to help Texans report suspicious activities directly to law enforcement. Whether it's unusual behavior in your neighborhood or something that just doesn't seem right, this app makes it easy to keep your community safe. Today, we're excited to have a special guest with us, Kimberly Jones, who brings a valuable insight and expertise on role of citizen awareness and technology enhancing public safety. So Ms. Jones, thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
So what is your role in DPS?
I'm a senior intelligence manager with the DPS Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division. So among some of the different things that I work on is our suspicious activity reporting program, also known to the public as iWatchTexas.
You mentioned iWatchTexas. Can you tell us a little bit more about what iWatchTexas is?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So iWatchTexas is a statewide public reporting platform, or you might also have heard it referred to as a community reporting platform, for items of concern involving crime, terrorism, or school safety. Now, the goal behind iWatchTexas was to be able to collect a number of reports from a wide range of different stakeholders and audiences in our community across the state of Texas so that our law enforcement, both at the state, local, and federal level, have a better understanding of some of the threats that might be impacting our citizens. And we would always encourage that if something is ongoing or something is imminent, that you absolutely call 911. That's what that's there for. And those are the ones that are going to respond the quickest. However, I think many of us in our lives have probably encountered something that just didn't feel right. Something that we either observed or maybe we heard about or perhaps we saw online that just didn't seem to set right because of a number of different factors. It could be that it was out of context. Maybe something that you saw just didn't really seem to mesh with the circumstances in which you were in. Maybe it was language that seemed to be threatening. Maybe it's expressed threat or maybe it's an implied threat. It could be somebody that just doesn't seem to be behaving really, if I could just use the word normally, behaving normally in a certain circumstance. Maybe they are continuing to stand outside a certain building in a manner that just doesn't really fit with what you would normally expect the general public to do. Or perhaps they're not dressed in a manner you would expect for the weather, right? These are all things that we may encounter on a day-to-day basis. And it could be indicative of somebody that is either engaged in or planning to be engaged in criminal, terrorism, or school safety related behavior. This is what we call a suspicious activity. And these are the items that we hope that if you see them, that you know to go to iWatchTexas and let us know about them so that we can follow up on it and make sure that if there is something that is a threat to the citizens of Texas, that law enforcement is able to proactively address that issue. The other thing is that very often what we're seeing with some of these threats that are occurring is that a lot of times it's coming from an individual in crisis. That individual needs help just as much as we need to make sure that our community is protected from threats. And so that also allows law enforcement to be able to assess the situation and potentially get that individual the help that they need before they spiral further into crisis or further along what we would call the pathway to violence, or before a threat that they are posing to society is able to become finalized and to be able to impact the citizens around. Now, there are a number of reporting systems that exist out there. A lot of really good options for individuals who are concerned about getting reporting directly from the source of the report directly to their agency or their organization. And that can provide a lot of benefits. But what it misses, what iWatchTexas seeks to fill the gap on, is that when we have what we would call a closed reporting system, that report doesn't have any ability to match with other reports in other jurisdictions that could still be impacting the threat.
Which is what's been happening actually. They get these ghost messages and it happens in one district, but then they get the same thing in another district and another district. Is that something what you're kind of talking about?
Absolutely. And in fact, you may remember back was I believe last December that a lot of schools and critical infrastructure across the nation, to include across here in Texas, were receiving the same threatening message by email. Now, what was really great about having the iWatchTexas system was that many of these schools were able to report in these concerns into iWatchTexas, which better equipped law enforcement to know where the schools and or critical infrastructure, because it wasn't just schools in some states, but where the schools and critical infrastructure that were receiving these, where they were being impacted. And that way our law enforcement could better tailor their response and to better understand the scope of what was happening with those mass emails that were going out, like I said, nationwide.
Is it tailored to everybody in general, or how does that work?
It is. Literally everybody can use this. We have 3 different ways in which you can report into iWatchTexas. There's our phone number. There's the app. And then there's the website. Now, our phone number is monitored 24/7, 365 days a year. You will always reach a person if you use the phone line. So if you feel more comfortable reporting anonymously, that is absolutely your call.
You know, that's a great point you brought up. And when I stress this a lot at school presentations or public presentations, that's something I bring up, that a lot of people that want to report stuff, they're afraid of retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
And what you brought up is you can remain anonymous. You don't have to put your information there. But providing that threat through iWatchTexas app and not being able, not having to provide your information, I think that's a plus. How does law enforcement get this information?
So for here at DPS, for example, we're very blessed that we have officers stationed across the state of Texas, and they are assigned to a wide variety of threats and concerns. And so when we get and we process a report, we are often able to go ahead and send that right to perhaps the lieutenant that handles those sorts of threats in that particular area. And for our regional centers, they behave in a very similar manner. Well, they will send it to one of their local officers for further either investigation or just follow-up discussions.
Can you list some of the stuff that they can report?
Absolutely. So I really am not exaggerating when I say all crimes approach. This could be anything from a concern that you might have about something involving drugs in your community, all the way to concerns maybe about human trafficking or human smuggling. Perhaps you have a concern about a crime against a child. We do have those activities as well for reporting purposes. And then, of course, terrorism-related concerns. I think in this day and age, that is increasingly becoming both any international terrorism concerns, but that could also be any domestic radicalization concerns that you might have for somebody within your community. We know that we're asking you to see something and do something. But again, a lot of times we get questions on, well, is what I'm seeing an actual item of concern? People are maybe just not sure, or maybe not as aware, as you mentioned, about what some of those indicators of concerns might be, particularly when it comes to targeted violence or terrorism. And so we are actively seeking to help fill this gap. We have a website available with a number of courses that are going to be offered in different parts of the state. And so if you are somebody who represents academia, who represents faith-based organizations, business organizations, we encourage you to consider attending one of these free trainings so that you can learn more about what some of these indicators might be, and then better help to educate some of your community about those indicators so that when it comes time to say you saw something, they know that it is something that they saw.
Well, there you have it, audience. See something, do something. Thank you for Ms. Kimberly Jones.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And thank you to everyone within the Intelligence Counterterrorism Division for putting their hand in this and helping Texans being able to save Texans reporting through iWatchTexas app. One thing I do want to reiterate to our audience is you don't have to be a law enforcement officer or a state trooper to save lives. We have many divisions of non-commissioned personnel that are out here working diligently, dedicating their lives to protect Texans. And this is just one example of the many divisions we have in the Texas Department of Public Safety that are here. If you do want to be part of our family, you don't have to be a state trooper. You can find us under joindps.com and join our team. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next episode.